Welcome to the new episode of the European Energy Efficiency Podcast. This is your host, Tüten Olbrich, Investment Associate at the European Energy Efficiency Fund. For those who are new to our podcast series, this is an initiative of the fund where we tend to touch upon sustainable investments and sustainability-related topics. As most of us are aware, lots need to be done across the globe to reach the net zero emission target by 2050. And in this episode, we'll focus on the climate change issue and its awareness among young generation. For that, I'm delighted to introduce our guest today, Jochen Eigenbrock, who is an inspiring philosophy, politics, and economics student at the University of Witten, Hedecke. Jochen is also a climate justice ambassador and advisory global board member at Plan for the Planet. Welcome,
Yeah.
Jochen, and thank you for joining our podcast today. Tell us more about yourself.
Hi, very glad to be on the podcast. So yeah, I'm Johan. I'm, as you said, studying philosophy, politics, and economics now, my fifth semester, and focusing there on sustainability and the combination or the connection to the financial system. And at Plan for the Planet, I have been since 2014, and Plan for the Planet is essentially a global movement to restore forest ecosystems to tackle the climate crisis and also biodiversity loss.
Thank you for joining our podcast today. So, global climate change is a defining issue of our time. And unfortunately, young people are passive victims of the current situation. Would you say that young people now care more about the climate change and also the global warming issues? And I also wonder, to what extent, if they do care, to what extent do you think they care more about these issues and problems?
Very interesting. So I think I cannot really compare to other generations, but I know that my generation or the young generation is taking the climate crisis very serious. And this is probably also because they know what the climate crisis is about, and that they have to live with the consequences of it. I mean, more and more schools, for example, and universities are including climate change in their curriculum. So you can't really get around not knowing how serious this is. And I think this is also reflected in recent polls and surveys. Telling us how serious youth is taking this issue. These surveys, for example, indicate that climate change is a top concern for many young people today, often ranking above other issues like healthcare, education, and also the overall state of the economy. And also, I would say you see many young people going on the street protesting and demanding more climate action. And I think that is also because youth has some kind of high ground when it comes to climate activism. We are not looking to be re-elected, or we're not on the stock price of a company, but we are fighting for our life and the lives of future generations.
That's true. I do agree with you. At my studies, we did not really have that much curriculums in sustainability or related topics. So I do feel that it has been a change and it's different nowadays. And I do believe that young people are not only the victims of the climate change, but they are also valuable contributors to the climate action. So we all know that climate neutrality is about emitting less and also absorbing more. Do you think that we are doing enough to stop the climate change and also reach climate neutrality? What solutions do you see, or do young people see in reaching those climate neutrality?
Yes, also very interesting question. And I wouldn't say that enough is done. Just this week, for example, we saw Germany, Europe's biggest economy, massively driving back on climate ambitions, which was very sad to hear.
That's really sad. Yeah.
And of course, there's always the talk about net zero in 2030, 2045, or 2050, as you said, but there's often no concrete plan behind that on how to achieve this. And one of the most crucial sectors, to reach climate neutrality is, of course, the energy sector, which right now heavily depends on the burning of fossil fuels. So phasing out fossil fuel is very important. But of course, we still need the energy for our lives and products that we consume. So there comes also renewable energy and energy efficiency into play. And I would say the greenest energy is the energy that we don't use. And that is exactly what energy efficiency projects try to reach. So I'm also must say we have to be careful about that. Yeah, or to think about that, as we need to reach net zero and not only reduction of emissions by a few percent. It's very important to have that energy efficiency projects are as ambitious as possible in order to reach climate neutrality, and they need to be checked constantly if there's more that can be done. And of course, when you say or talk about absorbing more, there's also other important methods. For example, which one I like, and what we also do at Plan for the Planet is reforestation and conservation of forests, mainly also as a time joker to implement climate projects and also take action.
Yeah, I just wonder if young people, young generation, they do see such kind of solutions, or the solutions to the climate change and to reach those climate neutrality, because we often hear about renewable technologies like solar and wind, and there's lots of talk about reducing carbon emissions by switching from coal-generated power to natural gas. And while energy efficiency being one of the solutions of what our fund, the European Energy Efficiency Fund, provides, is a hidden and often neglected source in the energy supply debates. While on the other side, energy efficiency improvements in reducing total energy intensity have been shown to have a much greater impact on CO2 emissions than changing the supply side of energy consumption. And my thought is just around that we do hear about renewable technologies, but I'm not sure if young people, they also know about exactly those kind of energy efficiency solutions. But yeah, that's just interesting to hear your opinion about that.
I think for renewable energy, there's also much more visibility for this method. Like renewable energy is much more in the press and politics. There's much more talk about it, and energy efficiency is kind of less visible, I would say. So I think it's very important also to make energy efficiency projects and what it's behind that also more visible.
That's agree with you. So, Johan, the world is home to 1.8 billion of young people between the ages of 10 and 24, which is the largest generation of youth in history. However, many climate change problems and also solutions are being solved by the older generations, while the issue we are facing is mainly affecting the younger one. Can you maybe share with us about your feelings about this, or maybe the feelings of your peers, if there has been such talks between your friends?
Yeah. So I think most of us live in a representative political system, and the goal of that is that every citizen is represented in political decision making, and also equally so. Though as there are very few young people as representatives in our systems, I don't feel quite represented, because I believe that our generation, as we have very different opinions, often is not included at the decision tables, which would be crucial. And I know that also many of my peers think so too. I mean, we young people are the ones who have to live with the decisions that are made by older generations right now for the longest time, and we will also have to suffer from the consequences the most. So I find it somehow, and I think also my peers find somehow unfair that youth is not also sitting at the decision table deciding about their own future. I think, with more and more pressure from youth and our generation, there's already things are changing. So, for example, at the last UN climate conference in Egypt, it was the first time that there was a separate space dedicated at the conference only for children and youth. And I think, things like these make me hopeful about the future.
Yeah, we have seen already some changes, so I hope that in the future it will be only better. But if you could, and I think this is also your big chance, what advice would you give to the older generations who are trying to tackle this climate change and also find a solution for our planet that will be inherited mainly by the younger generations?
A very difficult question. I think one of the biggest problems regarding this is that older generations think more short term than is necessary. Often they think about what they have to do in order to get re-elected, for example, and then only look at the next 4 years. And also, I feel like older generations often argue that climate action is very costly and that we don't have the money for that. Though they don't think about the argument that the consequences of climate change are actually much more costly to us than taking climate action now. And maybe they don't think about that because the costs will have to be vested by a different generation, the future generation that has also to suffer under these extreme costs and also the consequences. And maybe to make this more clear, for example, a study by the University College of London says that unchecked climate change could cause a 50% hit to the global economy by 2100. So I think investing in energy efficiency, for example, can much more be considered as an economic opportunity rather than a too costly activity. So I would give the advice to maybe think more about long term and not only until the next election. So think about what your city, your country, and also our world really needs in the long term, and then also act on that.
I think this is a really good point. As we already mentioned, I think one of the best solutions would also be that more and more young people are involved into such discussions and bring their ideas and their opinions on the table, and where then both generations, the older one who has a bit more power, can talk about with the younger generation, hence then both can find solutions for the issue that we are facing.
Yeah.
One more point I think I wanted to highlight and to ask you. Young people play an active role in addressing those climate changes. And I can see it from you because you are totally different from my generations, even I'm not that much older than you. But still, I feel that you are more aware of that and you are really trying to do something to change this issue. But I believe that there are still some other young people who are not that aware about the issue or who just care a bit less about this. What advice would you give to them? Or maybe also to those who do care about this, but they just don't know what to do with this issue and they're just facing it. So maybe the advice is to the one that who care less, and the advice is to the ones that who already knows about the issue, but what can they do more to help to tackle this problem?
So I think I would mainly give the advice that everyone should make their voices heard in every possible way. So, for example, last week there was a referendum in Berlin about whether Berlin should become carbon neutral by 2030 and not. And the referendum ultimately failed, but not because there was no majority, but because not enough people voted. Yeah. So this shows that it's very crucial for each and every one of us to support climate action. And the easiest way for this is, for example, through referendums like this, because I know that many young people are also very busy in their schedule. But these are little things that you can do. So go vote and demand climate action, and really hold the people that you vote for accountable for their decisions and also their actions. And also maybe another point is that I think many young people are also very frustrated with the current situation about climate change, and that certainly can be very depressing. But I would say there's also a bright side of the equation. For example, when you look on the job market, and in this case, for example, the market for heat pumps, to stay with the energy efficiency topic, you can see that the demand for installers of heat pumps is rising rapidly. So I think for other sectors that is no different. So there will be many jobs in the future, and already are, for our generation that are in high demand and also are very well paid and are having an impact, a positive impact on our world. So I would say don't give up your hope, but feel motivated by all the amazing people that are taking climate change seriously and take action. Go vote and demand what you want for the future.
Yeah, very valuable advices and interesting insight from your side. It's really unfortunate that the Berlin case, there was a chance for a change, but
Yeah.
due to the amount of votes, it could not reach to a positive result. So I think it's a good example what can be done better in the future, or how can we raise the awareness among young generation. Johan, thank you very much for the interesting conversation and your valuable insight into young generation mindset, or at least your mindset. I trust both young and old generation can work together in the
Yes.
future on solving those climate change issues. While I do believe that young people can really make an effective change, older generation can help and build an effort to bring young leaders into decision-making positions. And with that being said, I think we need more people like you. And if we have, then I do believe that our future are in good hands. Thank you very much again for your insight, and yeah,
Thank you very
hopefully,
much for hosting me. Thank you. Bye.
bye.